I just lost the only person in the world who knew who I really was when I was 20. The screen glows a cold, sterile white against the dark knots of the wood. My thumb hovers just above the glass, feeling the faint prickle of static electricity against my skin. The room is so quiet I can hear the dust settling. The air feels thick and heavy, like breathing through a wet wool blanket. I can still smell the faint scent of their old leather jacket and the sharp, burnt tang of the coffee they always left on the counter. Now, that version of me is just a ghost with nowhere to live. We spend our entire lives building secret museums inside other people's heads, thinking the vault is permanent. Then the phone goes dark. The vibration stops. The table feels hollow under my palm. Look at my hands. The skin is thin and translucent like wet tissue paper. The veins look like blue rivers on a map of a country that doesn't exist anymore. I'm 80 years old. I've spent 57 of those years chasing a ghost called tomorrow. You are listening to me because you are walking straight into a trap I spent a lifetime building for myself. You think your life is a thick book with endless blank pages. You think you have a vault full of time hidden under your mattress. You don't. You are breathing through a straw that gets narrower every single day. I remember sitting in a stiff plastic chair at 40, staring at a mountain of paperwork that tasted like dry grit in my mouth. I told myself I would travel when the mortgage was paid. I told myself I would speak my heart when the timing felt safe. I waited for the perfect sun to hit the perfect angle. Now my knees grind like rusted gears, and the air in my lungs feels like thin, cold smoke. You say later as if it's a guaranteed bank account, but later is a thief. Later is the silence of a phone that will never buzz again. Every time you push your joy into the future, you are burying a piece of yourself alive. The coffee on your desk is getting cold while you wait for a life that hasn't started yet. The shadows are already stretching long across your floor. Stop acting like you are immortal. The vault is empty. All you have is the weight of this moment pressing against your chest. Listen to the quiet. That is the sound of your later disappearing into the dark. My 57-year friendship with Tom didn't end at the funeral. It ended at an empty chair on a Tuesday morning at the old diner. And here's why it will give you chills. I sat in the same red vinyl booth we've occupied since the Nixon administration. The seat is cracked now, biting into the back of my legs through my thin trousers. The air smelled of burnt grease and that sharp lemon-scented floor cleaner they used to hide the age of the place. I reached for the glass sugar shaker, the one with the metal flip top that always sticks, and I pushed it toward the left side of the table. That was Tom's spot. My hand stopped in midair, hovering over the cold formica. That is when the ice water crawled down my spine. People think the end of a life is a flat line on a monitor or the heavy thud of dirt on a wooden box. It isn't. The end is the muscle memory of a habit that no longer has a home. I spent 5 decades looking at the top of Tom's balding head while I complained about my back, my taxes, and the way the world was changing. I treated our time like a stack of pennies I could never finish spending. But as I stared at that empty, yellowed chair, I realized the most terrifying thing of all. The last time we spoke, 3 days before his heart quit, I didn't even look him in the eyes. I was busy scraping a bit of dried egg off my fork with my thumb. I was thinking about my grocery list. I told him, "See you later," without even lifting my head. We spend our lives rehearsing for a future that is nothing but a ghost, while the physical reality of the people we love is evaporating right in front of us. You think you have a reservoir of moments left, but you are actually standing in a desert, watching the last cup of water soak into the sand. The chill you're feeling right now isn't a draft.
It's the realization that you might be sitting across from your own empty chair today, and you're too busy looking at your phone to notice the person sitting in it. Stop waiting for the funeral to say goodbye. The silence of that diner chair is a scream you can't unhear. Look up. The clock isn't ticking, it's counting down. The steam from the $2 coffee curls into the air, carrying that same burnt, acidic smell we've shared every Tuesday for decades. I run my thumb over the chipped ceramic rim of the mug. It's warm. The chair across from me is not. I close my eyes, and the sharp, biting scent of printing ink from 1967 hits me like a physical blow. We were kids then, working the late shift in that damp Chicago workshop. I can still hear the deafening, rhythmic clatter of the offset presses shaking the floorboards until my teeth rattled. My ears would ring for hours afterward. Tom would lean over, his coveralls smelling of grease and peppermint, and shout a joke I couldn't quite hear over the roar. When my father died, I didn't hear a word the preacher said. All I felt was the heavy, solid weight of Tom's hand on my shoulder. His palm was rough, calloused like sandpaper, but it was the only thing keeping me from floating away. Now, I look at my phone. The screen is a slab of cold, sterile glass. It doesn't have a heartbeat. It doesn't smell like old paper or hard work. I spent our last hour together staring at a digital feed, my neck bent, my eyes locked on a glowing rectangle, while the man who carried me through 1967 sat 3 feet away. I didn't notice the way his knuckles had swollen. I didn't see the light catching the silver in his hair. Life isn't a sequence of ideas. It is the grit under your fingernails. It is the vibration of a laugh in a crowded room. It is the smell of cheap diner coffee before it goes cold. You think you are waiting for the big moments, but you are actually drowning in a sea of small ones you're too distracted to feel. Put the phone face down on the formica. Feel the weight of your own breath. Look at the person across from you before they turn into a memory of ink and engine noise. The clock isn't ticking, it's burning down. Reach out while there is still something warm to touch.
The air in the room feels hollow now. Everyone thinks the tragedy is that Tom is gone. They think the loss is the silence where his laugh used to be, where the empty chair that smells faintly of peppermint and old newsprint. But it is sharper than that. When Tom stopped breathing, a library burned down, a library where I was the main character. In 1971, I was a kid who tripped over his own shadow and spilled ink on his only good shirt. Tom saw it. He smelled the panic on me. He felt the vibration of my nervous stutter against the roar of the presses. Now there is no one left to verify that version of me. The witnesses are all underground. I hold my phone, this cold slab of aluminum, and I realize it knows nothing. It doesn't remember the grease under my fingernails. It doesn't remember the way my heart hammered against my ribs when I failed. Without Tom, those years are just static. I'm walking around in a body that half the world has forgotten. I have become a stranger to my own history. I am a ghost haunting my own life because the only man who held the map is gone. Stop scrolling. Feel the cold glass of the screen against your thumb. It is a dead surface, flat and sterile, reflecting nothing but the glow of a battery that is slowly dying. You have a name in your contacts that you haven't touched in months. You tell yourself you are waiting for the right moment, for a Tuesday that feels less heavy, or a weekend that isn't choked with chores. You are waiting for a later that has no coordinates on a map. But while you wait, the ink is fading. The people who hold the keys to your childhood, the ones who remember the smell of your first car, or the way your mother's kitchen smelled on a rainy Sunday, are held in a fragile vessel of bone and fading memory. A text message is a cold shadow on a wall,
but a voice is a heartbeat you can hold. Feel the weight of the device against your jaw. Hear the static and the intake of breath on the other end. An old hand, skin like folded parchment, reaches out and lifts the phone from the wood. Don't let this vibration become just a hollow echo in an empty room. Call them. Reach out before your history becomes a one-sided conversation with a ghost. The phone settles back onto the grain of the table. It begins to shake once more.